I'm the guy who kept my family afloat, but they treated me like a ghost until the money ran dry. I'm Nathan Carter, 29, and I used to think family was the anchor you build your life around even when it drags you under. Not the sappy greeting card kind, but the real deal, messy, demanding, worth it. I was the quiet kid, the one who sent birthday flowers and fixed problems nobody else noticed. The middle child stuck between my older brother Lucas, the football star with a grin that could sell ice to penguins, and my younger sister Sophie, the princess who got a tiara before she could walk. Me, I was the B-plus kid, always told I could do better. I didn't mind. Kept my head down, snagged a scholarship, and clawed my way into starting my own IT firm. 3 years of ramen, 16-hour days, and rejection emails later, it finally took off. A small miracle, but mine. Back when I was scraping by, my family didn't call. No, how you holding up texts. But the second my bank account started looking healthy, I was family again. It crept in slow. Dad Robert hit me up first. Hey, can you cover the rest of Lucas's car payments just till he gets that promotion? Then Sophie needed private college tuition because financial aid fell short. Mom Eleanor had a list, roof leaks, busted heater, the kitchen remodel she'd pinned on Pinterest for years. Before I knew it, I was bankrolling 3 households. Texts rolled in like clockwork. Yo, Nate, Venmo me for groceries. I didn't push back. I was grateful I could help, maybe even proud. I told myself I was building something, a legacy, a safety net for the people I loved. But it gnawed at me the way they acted like my money was their birthright. No thanks, no you, okay? Just more asks, more expectations. I'd catch myself staring at my phone, waiting for a message that wasn't a demand. It never came. Last Thanksgiving cracked the facade. I hosted not to flex, but because I finally had a place big enough for everyone. I catered, cleaned, set up a fire pit in the backyard. Nobody lifted a finger, not even for dishes. Lucas raised a glass mid-dinner, all charm toasting family sticking together. Never mentioned I paid for every plate on the table. Sophie barely looked up from her phone, too busy giggling with her new boyfriend. Dad droned on about how kids these days have it easy, his eyes sliding past me. I smiled, nodded, swallowed it all. But inside I felt like a stranger in my own home. I kept it together, kept paying, kept quiet. Until a random Tuesday night, 2 months later. I'd just wrapped a marathon meeting, head pounding, when I saw a voicemail from Dad. His voice was sharp, like a blade wrapped in exhaustion. Nathan, all you do is take. You've never given this family anything worth keeping. If you had any spine, you'd stop acting like we owe you and just disappear. I froze. Played it again, thinking I misheard. All you do is take. My chest tightened, not with anger, but with something heavier. Betrayal, maybe. I didn't call back. Didn't scream. Just stood there staring at my phone, then walked to the window. City lights blinked back, indifferent. Something in me snapped, not loud, not dramatic, but final, like a wire giving way under too much strain. That night, I packed a bag. No big speech, no farewell note. I texted my assistant to freeze all family-linked payments, tuition, car, mortgage, everything. Then I left. Clean break, no ripples. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I couldn't stay. 3 days passed, then a week, nothing. No calls, no texts, no where are you. My family didn't notice I was gone. That's when I realized nothing would be the same. A month of silence, and then my sister's shaky voice cracked through because her tuition didn't clear. I'd been in Denver a week, holed up in a cozy Airbnb with mountain views, when Sophie's call hit. I'd flown there on a whim, needing air that didn't choke me with obligation. No one had noticed I'd vanished, no texts, no, you okay? Just me, a rental car, and the kind of quiet I hadn't felt in years. I'd walk to a coffee shop each morning, journal, then wander downtown, letting the world blur. It was strange, unlearning the habit of bracing for someone else's crisis. But I was starting to like it. Then, late one Friday, my phone buzzed. Sophie's name lit up the screen. Her voice was all forced calm, the kind you use when you're trying not to sound desperate. Nate, hey, I logged into the school portal and my tuition didn't go through. Did something happen with the account? I could hear the panic she was swallowing, the way her words tripped over each other. I didn't answer right away. Just sat there, staring at the Rockies through the window, Dad's voicemail echoing in my head. All you do is take. I typed one text, thought I never gave this family anything. Sent, no explanation, no follow-up. Within an hour, my phone lit up like a slot machine. 4 missed calls from Mom, 2 from Lucas, 1 from an unknown number. Dad left a voicemail, his tone dripping with that old familiar mix of authority and irritation. Nathan, we need to talk. Whatever this stunt is, it's not funny. Your sister's future is on the line. No apology, no what's going on. Just demands like I was a vending machine that stopped spitting out cash. I didn't listen to the rest. Powered off my phone and booked a hiking trail in Boulder for the next day. I needed to be somewhere their voices couldn't reach. Growing up, I'd always wanted to hike planned trips saved for gear, but every time someone needed a bailout. Sophie once called me from Cancun voice, all fake tears, saying she'd lost her wallet at a resort. I wired her $800, no questions asked. Never got a thank you, just a Snapchat of her sipping a margarita later that night. That memory hit me as I stood on a cliff trail, wind slicing through my jacket, the valley sprawling below. I laughed, loud, sharp, echoing off the rocks. Back home, the dominoes were falling. Sophie's school sent a withdrawal notice for non-payment. Lucas's car, still unpaid, got repossessed. Mom and Dad's mortgage payment bounced their perfect suburban facade cracking. They started spinning their story to extended family, painting me as the selfish son who'd ditched them for no reason. But not everyone bought it. My cousin Lily, Mom's niece, texted me out of the blue. I've always admired how patient you are, Nate. Glad you're done being their ATM. Her words landed harder than I expected. I'd never wanted revenge, just freedom. But knowing someone saw the truth, saw me, it felt like a lifeline. I'd spent years carrying their weight, thinking it made me strong. Flashbacks crept in, late nights helping Mom with holiday dinners, scrubbing dishes while she ignored Dad's rants. Wiring Sophie textbook money while she partied. Paying off Lucas's car so he could focus on his career. I'd convinced myself it was love. Now I saw it for what it was, a one-way street. In Denver, I let myself breathe. No buzzing phone, no one more favor. I drove to Boulder, hiked alone, ate at diners where nobody knew my name. But 3 weeks in, Mom broke the silence with an email. Subject, we need you to come home. No greeting, just a wall of text. I don't know what's gotten into you, Nathan. Your father's furious. We've done so much for you. Family doesn't abandon family. I read it twice, jaw tight. Family doesn't abandon family. Except they did every forgotten birthday, every holiday where I sat in the background while Lucas gave his speeches and Sophie got showered with gifts. Every time they took my money and called it nothing. I didn't reply. Instead, I forwarded the email to my lawyer, Daniel, who'd set up my trust fund years ago. Start moving Sophie's tuition funds to a scholarship for first-gen students, I told him. And check the deed on the lake house. That place they loved, the one I'd paid off under their shared family investment lie. My name was still on it. I leaned back, staring at the Denver skyline, and felt something shift, not peace, not yet, but power. They'd built their world on my silence, and I was done being their foundation. That's when I realized they were about to learn what falling really felt like. I walked into my childhood home unannounced and heard them shredding me like I was nothing, but I was already rewriting the ending. I flew back from Denver on a Sunday, not to beg or explain, but to tie up loose ends. 3 weeks of mountain air and silence had cleared my head. I wasn't angry anymore, just done. I'd told Daniel to start the lake house sale, the one I'd paid off thinking it'd be our family's legacy. Now I needed proof of who they really were. I landed at noon, grabbed a rental car, and drove straight to the house, the same one I'd saved from foreclosure when Dad swore he'd sell it unless someone fixed the water damage. It looked unchanged, all fake charm like a photo you'd see in a realtor's ad. As I pulled into the driveway, I spotted Lucas's beat-up pickup. Figured he'd moved back in after the car repo. I didn't knock. Used the spare key Mom never remembered I had. The second I stepped into the hallway, voices hit me sharp, careless, tearing me apart like I wasn't standing 10 feet away. Lucas mid-rant. He's just being dramatic. Nate'll crawl back once he gets over himself. Sophie, quieter, almost whining, I don't get why he's doing this. It's not that much money to him, is it? Dad's voice cut through low and bitter. Nathan's always been the weakest, hiding behind his computer, acting like money makes him special. I stood there unseen, my pulse steady but cold. I'd spent years paying their bills, fixing their messes, and this was me to them, a weakling, a wallet, a punchline. Flashbacks flickered wiring Sophie cash for emergencies while she posted beach selfies. Bailing Lucas out of debt so he could focus. Sitting through Dad's lectures about real work while I rebuilt their lives. I didn't storm in or shout, didn't need to. Their words were the receipt I came for. I backed out silent as I'd arrived and drove to the lake house. Walking through that place hit different. The open-plan kitchen, the deck they'd grill on every summer, all paid by me, all theirs in their minds. The wall of family photos stared back, not a single one with me. I snapped pictures for the real estate listing, my hands steady, but my chest tight. I'd loved this place, once thought it'd be where we'd gather for years. Now it was just another weight they'd hung around my neck. By nightfall, Daniel had the paperwork ready to list it. That Saturday, I sent one message to the family group chat. You said I never gave you anything, so I'm giving you what you've always acted like you wanted: distance. No more tuition, no cars, no repairs. Sell your own memories. I'm out. I left the chat, blocked their numbers, and felt the air shift like I'd finally cut a cord that had been strangling me for years. The fallout came fast. Sophie's school sent expulsion warnings. Lucas got fired, too busy scrambling after the repo to show up for shifts. Mom and Dad's bank started calling about the mortgage they couldn't cover. They leaned hard into their victim story, telling aunts and uncles I'd abandoned them out of the blue. But cracks showed. Lily, my cousin, texted me screenshots of their complaints, adding, "They're rewriting history, Nate. Half the family knows you carried them." Her support wasn't loud, but it was solid, like a hand on my shoulder when I'd forgotten what that felt like. I flew to Tokyo the next week, first class. No guilt. The city was a fever dream, temples tucked between neon arcade streets humming with life that didn't need me to fix it. I wandered, ate ramen at hole-in-the-wall counters, let my mind unclench. No buzzing phone, no Nate we need. Texts. For the first time, I was just me, not a safety net, not a fixer. But the chaos I'd left behind was catching up. I ignored the missed calls, dozens from unknown numbers, probably Sophie's friends or Dad's co-workers trying to talk sense into me. His texts started as threats. "You'll regret this," then unraveled into desperate fragments. "We didn't mean it. You're still our son." I didn't open the voicemails, just watched the notifications pile up like a scoreboard I'd already won. 2 weeks in, I unblocked Lily. She'd sent one message, no pressure. "When you're ready to talk, I'm here. Not to push, just to listen." I met her at a cafe when I got back, still jet-lagged but lighter. She slid her laptop across the table. "You need to see this." It was a Reddit thread, Sophie using a throwaway begging for tuition money after a family emergency. She painted me as the unhinged brother who'd ditched them for no reason, claiming I was having a breakdown. Strangers were donating her post, raking in nearly $6,000. My gut twisted not rage, but a tired kind of sadness. She was still rewriting me, monetizing lies, while I'd paid her way through 3 years of school. I didn't call her out. Didn't need to. Lily's tight-lipped stare said enough. That's when I realized they'd never stop taking unless I made them. I exposed my sister's lies with a single comment, but the real blow came when they tried to claim my house. Sophie's Reddit post burned in my mind like a bad dream you can't shake. I sat in that cafe with Lily staring at her laptop, the screen glowing with my sister's sob story, me, the unstable brother who'd abandoned her. She'd spun a tale so slick it fooled strangers into tossing her cash $6,000 and counting. I didn't yell or fire off an angry DM. Instead, I pulled up my bank records, every tuition payment, every textbook fund, every emergency wire I'd sent her. Uploaded them to a private Imgur album. No names, just dates and dollar amounts. Then I dropped one anonymous comment on her thread. Before you donate, ask where the other $90 or $1,000 went. Some people forget who helped when the help stops. I closed the laptop and sipped my coffee. Didn't need to watch the fallout. Within a day, her post was gone, yanked by mods for suspicious activity. The comments turned fast strangers sniffing out the grift. Lily gave me a half smile. First real consequence they've faced, she said. I nodded, but it didn't feel like victory. Just proof they'd never seen me as anything but a resource. Back in my apartment, I kept moving forward. Tokyo had taught me what life felt like without their weight, clean, quiet mine. I wasn't going back, but they weren't done trying to claw me in. A week later, a certified letter landed at my office, typed up like some corporate memo. From Dad. It opened with, "We formally request a meeting to discuss the breakdown of our family dynamic." I snorted family dynamic like we were a company in need of a team-building retreat. Buried in the jargon was the real motive they wanted a cut of the lake house sale. Claimed they had emotional equity in it. Emotional equity. The phrase made my skin crawl. I remembered signing the lake house papers, Dad promising it'd be our family's future. I'd paid every dime, believing him. Now they thought they could guilt me into sharing the profits. I slid the letter to Daniel, my lawyer, without a word. He skimmed it, smirked. Want me to remind them emotional equity doesn't hold up in court? I nodded. We did better, sent them a copy of the original agreement signed by Dad, stating the house was mine alone. I relinquish all future claims, his own words inked years ago. He'd forgotten. Or hoped I had. That shut them up quick. But I wasn't done tying knots. While in Tokyo, Daniel and I had dug into something bigger, the main house, the one I grew up in. Years back, I'd loaned Mom and Dad a chunk of cash to save it from foreclosure, a verbal agreement they never repaid. Daniel tracked every deposit, every wire, and we found I was owed over $80,000. Enough for a lien. Enough to force a sale. I didn't hesitate. Not out of spite, but clarity. They'd built their lives on my silence, and I was done letting them. Lily called me that night, voice low. Nate, they're freaking out. Your mom called mine crying. Dad's threatening to blast you on social media. I leaned back, staring at my ceiling. Let him. I've got receipts. Let's see who wins that war. But it wasn't about winning anymore. It was about closing a door I'd left cracked too long. Flashbacks hit hard, late nights helping Mom cook for holidays, her laughing off Dad's rants, bailing Lucas out of debt while he partied, Sophie calling me boring at Thanksgiving while I paid for her plate. I'd given them everything, time, money, loyalty, and they'd called it weakness. Now they were learning what it felt like when the faucet turned off. The house went up for auction a month later. I didn't tell anyone I'd be there. Drove up in my rental, parked across the street, and watched. The air was crisp, that early fall bite I remembered from childhood. A white sign staked the lawn, notice of foreclosure, auction today. No trespassing. Daniel was inside, chatting with the auction rep, a no-nonsense woman with a clipboard. He spotted me, frowned. You don't have to do this, Nate. I do, I said. Not for revenge, but to see it through. To witness the end of a story I'd been written out of. I walked through the house one last time, footsteps echoing on hardwood. The dent in the den from Lucas's stray baseball. The carpet stain from Sophie's nail polish blamed on me. The wall where report cards used to hang, mine always missing by high school. It was like I'd been a ghost here, haunting my own life. In the kitchen, I found a photo on the counter Christmas 2 years ago, all of them smiling, me cropped out when they posted it online. I turned it face down, left it there. Outside cars pulled up, Bitter's neighbors, then them. Dad's old Chevy screeched in, packed like a clown car. Sophie stumbled out, eyes red behind big sunglasses. Lucas followed, scowling, playing tough. Mom looked hollow. Dad still striding like he owned the place. He saw me, marched over. "Nathan, we need to talk. Now." I didn't budge. He loomed closer, Lucas at his shoulder. "You're humiliating us," Dad hissed. "Over what? Some slight?" "It's not a slight," I said, voice flat. "It's a pattern, and it ends today." That's when I realized they'd never admit what they'd done, not even with the truth staring them down. They begged as the gavel fell, but I'd already found peace in letting them go. Dad's voice cracked as he tried to interrupt the auctioneer's call. "Nathan, you can't do this." But I just stood there, hands in my pockets, watching the end unfold. Sophie's face crumpled, her sunglasses slipping as she whispered, "I'm losing everything." Lucas hovered behind her, fists clenched like he wanted to punch the air but knew it wouldn't help. Mom's eyes darted between me and the small crowd, her usual poise replaced by something raw, almost frail. The auctioneer's voice cut through again, 5 minutes to final bids. Dad lunged forward, voice low and desperate now. "You wouldn't even have this house without us." I met his gaze, steady. "You're right, so I'm taking it back." Sophie broke in, voice wobbly. "Nate, I had to drop 2 classes. My scholarship's gone." "Why are you doing this?" I turned to her, calm but unyielding. "I paid your tuition for 3 years. Every bill, every book. You never said thanks. You posted online I was unstable, lied for cash. And now you want sympathy." Her mouth opened, but nothing came out. Mom tried next, voice soft. "Families don't do this, Nathan. Families don't take like you did," I said. "You drained my time, my money, my trust. When I stopped, you called me selfish." The auctioneer's gavel cracked, sold. A retired couple from out of town here for their grandkids won the bid. I signed the papers, handed Daniel the keys, and walked away as my family stood frozen in the driveway, helpless for the first time I could remember. 3 weeks later, the eviction notice hit. They had 30 days to clear out. They didn't pack much, just grabbed what fit in Dad's Chevy and left piles of clutter behind. The movers found an old journal of mine in a box labeled junk. High school dreams scribbled inside: get into college, start a business, buy a house, take care of family. I flipped through it, a bitter smile tugging at my lips. None of it turned out like I'd planned. I donated the furniture, trashed the rest. Lily helped me close the estate, her quiet presence a reminder I wasn't alone. When it was done, she hugged me tight. "You did the right thing, Nate, even if it stings." She was right, it didn't feel good. No movie-style triumph, no slow clap closure, just a heavy echoing quiet that slowly softened into peace. I moved to a new city after that, bought a small loft, simple mine, no hidden bills waiting to ambush me. The calls stopped. The emails dried up. Over time, even the bitterness faded. I didn't hate them. I just unplugged, like snipping the last thread of a rope that had been dragging me underwater. One night, months later, I sat on my balcony, tea in hand, watching lights flicker across the skyline. I thought back to that last Thanksgiving, Lucas's hollow toast, Sophie's phone, Glow Dad's complaints. They'd smiled like actors in a commercial, blind to the cracks in the glue holding us together. They weren't a family. They were a machine, humming only as long as I stayed silent, useful, small. Now they were learning to stand without me. An email from Sophie came a few weeks after that. I don't expect a reply. I just get it now. "I'm sorry." I read it 3 times, each word heavy with what it didn't fix. I archived it not out of anger, but because I didn't need her apology. I'd found my own closure, built it from the ground up. Lily stayed in touch, the only thread I kept. We'd grab coffee, talk about nothing, movies, her job, the weather. She never asked me to forgive them, never pushed. One day, she mentioned Dad had tried posting about me online, some vague rant about ungrateful kids. It got no traction. The family's story was unraveling, and too many people, cousins, old friends, knew the truth. I'd carried them for years, and the receipts were everywhere. Looking back, I see it clear I gave them everything, my savings, my loyalty, my heart, and they mistook it for weakness. When I stopped, they didn't lose a son or a brother. They lost a system, and I gained myself. I'm not proud of how it ended, but I'm not sorry either. I'm just free. So, Reddit AITA for cutting them off and letting their world collapse, Story 2. It's said that you discover who truly matters when you're at your lowest. I learned this while lying in a hospital bed and looking at the tiles in the ceiling, keeping track of the seconds that pass between each cardiac monitor sound. I'm waiting for someone to arrive. Daniel is my name. I've been my family's unofficial financial pillar for the past 6 years, and I'm 34 years old. I paid the rent, groceries, me, my younger brothers, Carlos. I signed a co-signed document. I didn't voice any complaints, not once, not when I was required to work overtime, not when maintaining the lights in their home required me to forgo my own vacations. I did it because I believed it was the role of family. Assist one another. It all began with my dad's untimely death. At the age of 28, I was doing well for myself while working at a medium company. Jason, my younger brother, was 22 years old and still figuring himself out, which mostly meant living off our mother and bouncing between unsuccessful business ventures. Elaine, my mother, was complex, sharp-witted, strong-willed, and utterly certain that the world owed her something following the death of her father. She firmly believed that I had a duty to support the family because I was the one who was successful. I first agreed. I assumed it would only last until we all regained our footing. However, temporary became permanent very quickly. Years passed after just a few months of paying the rent. Initially, it was assisting with the groceries. The phone bill follows. Then, in order to begin driving for Uber, Jason required a short-term loan for a car. That vehicle never carried anyone. While Jason began a 4-episode podcast, it sat on their garage. Mom didn't say thank you once during it all. It always was. Well, this is what families do, or if your father were present, Daniel. And foolishly, I continued to do it, even after I became aware of my own savings. Thinning. I kept telling myself that it was worth it, that someday they would support me if I needed it, even though I wanted to move into a larger home but couldn't justify it given how much I was spending every month to cover their life, that the sacrifice would all be worthwhile. Then I became ill. It began modestly, exhaustion. I had a strange soreness in my right side that persisted. It seemed insignificant to me. It worsened, perhaps due to stress, nausea, and a sharp stabbing ache. After nearly passing out in the office restroom, I eventually went to the hospital. An appendix burst. I was sent to emergency surgery. My employer had left me a message on my phone when I woke up exhausted, painful, and hardly able to move. Nor my brother, nor my mom. The individuals I'd been helping for years didn't miss a single call. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't help but feel the weight of that quiet. On the second day, I spent 2 nights in the hospital. At last, I gave my mother a call. Hello? My throat was dry from the anesthetic as I croaked. I recently had surgery. I need some assistance going home. She interrupted me, saying that she might simply need someone to pick up my medication. I'm sorry you're feeling under the weather, Daniel, but you're an adult. We don't have any responsibility for you. I can't drop everything to be your chauffeur. Jason is already under enough stress. All I did was look at the wall. The phone was still in my ear. I was at a loss for words. I briefly questioned if I was dreaming or whether the anesthetic had worn off. Furthermore, this was really a strange delusion. However, she continued. Perhaps you won't overwork yourself the next time. You know you wouldn't have to rely on us in this way if you had a wife or someone else in your life. I don't want to come out as judgmental, but everyone has their own issues. Before I could reply, she hung up. I refrained from crying. I desired to. However, all I experienced was a profound, numbing coldness that settled into my chest as if someone had lit a fire to everything I believed to be true about family and just left smoke behind. In the end, the nurse called a cab for me. I carried a drugstore bag in one hand as I hobbled inside my apartment, still dizzy and aching. I spent an hour sitting on my couch looking into space, feeling as though something inside of me was breaking. I opened my laptop that evening. I didn't become angry. I refrained from crying. I just got to typing. I launched my banking app and began adding up all of the automatic payments I had previously set up. Rent for their flat food purchased via Instacart utilities and Jason's auto insurance. On all of them, I hit cancel. I wrote a brief composed message in our group chat the next morning. I will no longer be providing financial support to anyone other than myself due to my condition. I wish you luck. I didn't immediately receive an answer. In actuality, there was no conversation for 3 whole days. Perhaps they didn't notice it, or perhaps they didn't trust me, I reasoned. Then the texts began. Jason, my friend, came first. Did the landlords claim we were late at the time, or did the rent not go through, Mom? I understand that you've been going through a difficult period, but now is not the time to act selfishly, Daniel. Here, we're having trouble. I understood what struggle looked like, so hearing that word made my blood boil. While others uploaded photos from wine tastings and went on weekend getaways, I struggled through college working 2 jobs. When I subtly took up a second job last year to keep their heating on over the winter, I had struggled. They hadn't seen any difficulties. Convenience was something they had witnessed. I choose to disregard the texts. Day 4. Jason gave a call. I didn't answer. Day 5. Mom called. Until the screen went dark, I kept my eyes on it. They were outside my apartment building by the 6th day. I reside in a gated condominium community. They continued to stand at the front door despite this, though. Faces contorted in outrage as if I were the one who had harmed them, arms crossed. From my window, I observed. Jason paced and made gestures like a reality show contestant who had just been eliminated while Mom grabbed a tissue in her palm and dabbed her eyes dramatically. In the call box, they were yelling. I would give in if I pressed each unit number in that manner. There I stood, with one hand still at my side and the painkillers just slightly reducing the ache. I had an odd feeling. Relief. In years for the first time. I didn't feel bad. No commitment, just some clarification. The story doesn't end there, though. They stayed. Not 10 minutes later. Not after 30. I saw the sun disappear behind the buildings as the daylight began to wane. Like some depressing pretext for a protest, they remained parked on the curb. After a while, Jason settled down on his car's hood. I started scrolling through his phone, and technically it was my car because my name was still on the lease. Mom paced, most likely writing a dramatic Facebook post about the son she raised leaving her. I switched on the TV and closed the blinds. When they eventually departed, it was nearly midnight. Or perhaps they did not. Perhaps they simply dozed off downstairs in the car. I didn't look. I didn't give a damn. I woke up the following morning to the sound of pounding, not knocking. After dragging myself to the entrance and sifting through the crowd, I saw my mother, her hair unkempt and her eyes red as if she hadn't slept. She must have heard me coming because she yelled, "Open this door, Daniel. We must speak." "No, we don't," I answered, leaning against the wall, still weak after the surgery. Her anger simply increased as a result. "You cannot simply cut us off in this manner. Your family is us. We helped you throughout your entire life." I chuckled. I was unable to resist. It sounded empty and unpleasant. "Do you mean the way you helped me get better after my surgery?" Very motivating material. A long pause was followed by the traditional mother's sigh, the one that indicated she was going to attempt guilt. "Daniel, you're aware of how much we've endured. Your sibling is having difficulties. I'm still in mourning for your dad. Your income is more than sufficient to assist. What should we do at this point? Have nowhere to live. You were expected to be grown-ups. I made a louder snap than I meant to. You weren't asked to rely on me. I gave, and all I received in return was silence and entitlement. The one moment you were required." In fact, she scoffed. "You're overstating things. You are not some terrible victim after one operation." I didn't respond. For a long time, she stood there murmuring to herself. She eventually departed once more, but she wasn't finished. My phone started exploding that afternoon. Makes calls, text messages, voicemails. Somewhere. Somewhere. Jason. I hadn't spoken to several of my extended family members in months. All of a sudden, they want to hear my perspective. I became aware that something had shifted at that point. Anne-Marie said she was informing everyone. Mom had claimed that I'd gone insane following surgery and had suddenly chosen to punish them by threatening to put them out of their house. Claimed they were afraid for their safety and that I was abusive with money. I choked on my water after that one. I'm afraid. After 6 years of them essentially living off of me, I was suddenly a threat. I considered composing a dramatic, large-scale message. It's one of those postings called "Here's the Truth," in which I list all of my expenses, loans, and bills. However, I didn't. I made 2 calls instead. To the automobile dealership was the first. I described the situation and informed them that I was terminating Jason's lease. Legally complex, but they threatened to take back the automobile if he didn't make one more payment, which he had previously done. I'm good with it. The second was to the landlord, to whom I had been making payments. "Hello, this is Daniel. You should send notifications and rent to the renters in Unit 3B moving ahead, as I am no longer financially liable for them." She paused. "Are you certain that the account already has a balance?" "I'm positive." That night, I hung up and sat in the silence. The door was knocked on again. It was Jason this time. He didn't yell. He didn't make a splash. He simply remained there, looking into the crowd as if he could see right through me. "Just talk to me, Dan guy." His voice was quieter than I had heard it in a long time. "We're in a terrible place, and I know Mom has been theatrical. My automobile is going to be lost. She's going crazy." "I understand. Come on, you were angry." I spoke loud enough for him to hear, but I didn't open the door. "I did everything I could for you. You can now give me one item. Quiet." He continued to stand there. Then I heard him turn to go. However, something that occurred the next day nearly forced me to open that door. A white envelope with no address for return, simply left beneath my door. A hard copy of my medical bill is included. Not a word. Only the bill. They had obtained my insurance information. I froze somehow. Then, because it was no longer just passive aggression, I felt a searing fire rise in my chest. It was war. I had finished being pleasant. I spent a lot of time staring at the bill, not because I was perplexed, but because I understood exactly what it was: a reminder, a warning, or a message. Mom was stating that we know how much you spent and we can make use of it. She had somehow seen my letter while I was comatose in the hospital, or worse, someone from the insurance company, of course. In any case, it was suddenly intrusive and intimate in a way that made my skin crawl. I repositioned the envelope beneath the door. No response, no note. I was aware that they were most likely waiting outside, expecting me to arrive irate and agitated, but I refused to give them that. Rather, I worked on something I should have done years ago for the next few hours. I downloaded all of my invoices, auto payments, and other documents that connected my identity to their funds, printed statements, and took screenshots of text communications. I began itemizing each dollar of rent from January 2019 to March 2025 after opening an Excel spreadsheet. Groceries, utilities, Jason's. I covered Carly's mother's emergency dental procedure when she forgot her insurance had expired. Even simple stuff like streaming accounts and receipts she had sought via Venmo but never paid back were counted by me. Jason's now defunct men's coaching company hosted a weekend retreat. The sum totaled $42. I had to take a breath after looking at that figure. Nearly $100,000? Over the course of 6 years that I was alive, money was silently and covertly taken out of my bank account, as if I was simply getting by and believing I was being a decent son. I emailed myself everything that night, packed everything into a password-protected folder, and made 2 backups because I hadn't said no once. I desired it, even though I didn't intend to use it. I heard a knock on the door once more the next morning. It was measured and forceful without being noisy. I almost burst out laughing as I scanned the crowd. Uncle Ron was there. It was, of course. Uncle Ron fixed things for the family, not in a legal sense. Although he managed a gym, he was also the self-appointed emotional go-between who constantly stepped in when conflict arose. The man who, despite being expelled from a Dave & Buster's for tossing over a Monopoly board on a family evening, gave everyone uninvited TED presentations on sacrificing pride and choosing peace over ego. He had a tray of coffee cups in his hands. Peacemaker mode has been engaged. I pulled the door open, only a crack. He said, "Hey, buddy." The salesperson had a big smile on his face. "I didn't want to bother you. I just wanted to stop by and chat." I remained silent. He held out a coffee to the opening in the door. "It's dark, just the way you want it." Silently, I took the cup gently. He shifted uncomfortably and cleared his throat. "Look, Jason is also quite irritated with your mom. And I understand, the entire situation has been chaotic. But family is like that. Words are mispronounced, emotions are wounded. What matters is if they sent you," I inquired. He paused. No. I mean, I converse with them." "Yes, but my concern is the reason I came. The entire circumstance." "Please, it's not you. It's the tension. All of you are experiencing a great deal." At last, I folded my arms and went out into the hallway. "Ron, what specifically do you believe is going on?" He blinked. "According to what I've heard, you abruptly stopped talking to everyone. I get that you were in the hospital and all, but that seems a bit excessive, don't you think?" That deep, seething wrath flickered through me once again. However, I spoke calmly. I texted. I clarified. It wasn't theatrical on my part. After they disregarded me in a hospital bed for 6 years, I simply said that I couldn't continue to support them. He parted his lips. I wasn't finished, though. I wasn't requesting cash. I wasn't requesting a grand gesture. All I wanted was for someone to arrive. Rather, my mother said that I was not her duty. Do you believe I went too far? All right. However, don't pretend that I abandoned them out of resentment. Ron seemed abnormally solemn as he scratched his jaw. All okay, fair. Nevertheless, you must acknowledge that this is unhealthy for everyone. By now, they're barely making ends meet. The rent for your mom is past due. The vehicle may be repossessed. It ought to be taken back. Flatly, I replied. He never had it. I won't be spending any more money. It didn't sit well with him. Ron's voice changed. Dan, hurry up. Are you truly going to allow your mother to lose her house due to a miscommunication? I gazed at him. There was no miscommunication. Clarity was the key. Perhaps it's time for her to understand what true responsibility entails. Clearly sensing that I wasn't bending, he let out a sigh and took a step back. Okay, but don't think this will go away. You are aware of her personality. I gave a nod. Yes, I do. Muttering something beneath his breath about families destroying themselves for no apparent reason, he turned and left. I wasn't damaging anything, though. At last, I was halting the gradual bleeding. The days that followed were strangely silent. No phone calls, no voicemails, not even social media posts that are passive-aggressive. Nothing but quiet. For the first time in years, I took the opportunity to rest, concentrate on healing, and begin treatment, but I wasn't sure if it was a retreat or the quiet before a storm. Then one morning, my HR department sent me an email. It was marked as urgent. It seems that someone had anonymously called my place of employment and accused me of stealing software, abusing business finances, and being mentally unstable after a medical emergency. They just used ambiguous, provocative wording and no supporting proof, but the timing was too good to pass up. And a freshly made burner address for the sender. My stomach dropped as I sat at my desk and read the email 5 times over. Suddenly, this was about more than simply money. Its goal was to ruin me. And they were prepared to go much beyond what I had anticipated. I spent a lot of time staring at that email. I wasn't even upset at first, I was taken aback. The thought of someone from my own family trying to undermine my career was too much for my mind to process. But I knew in my heart, not merely in a nebulous positive sense, I recognized it as Mom. Jason lacked the intelligence to write an email in that manner. Furthermore, this was her form of retaliation. Clever and smart, but not loud or direct. She had always been preoccupied with how other people saw us. Currency was the way her image was viewed, and she was attempting to ruin my reputation now that I had severed our financial ties. It was obvious that the email was rubbish. Neither theft nor malfunction occurred. I was back at work doing my job well after receiving full clearance from HR. The harm, however, came from the suggestion that I was being discussed in whispers and that someone else believed I was unstable. I put my coffee down and opened the folder I had been working on. I had no desire to utilize it. I desired to recover, proceed, ignore them. They wouldn't allow me, though. They want conflict. All right, the soil would be burnt. I began by speaking with the landlord. I sent in an email with a record of every rent payment I had made over the previous several years under my name. I demanded an official removal from the leasing records, something I had previously left informal, and emphasized that I was no longer financially connected to them. Within an hour, he replied. I apologized and even offered to exclude my brother and mother from future leases due to their loud noises and repeated payment delays. I informed him that it wouldn't be required just yet. After that, I gave the dealership a call regarding Jason's vehicle. Officially, he had missed 3 installments. In order to initiate a voluntary repossession, I paid the remaining amount, approximately $900, which hurt. However, because I now had complete rights to repossess the car, it was worthwhile. After all, it was officially in my name. And I did. The repo truck arrived directly in front of their unit a week later. Wearing mismatched socks and running shirtless, Jason yelled at the man to call Dan as if I would rush in to stop it. As a kindness, the driver provided me the dashcam film from the truck, and I saw everything happen. Jason kicked the tire, yelled that it was against the law before tripping over the curb. The only thing I regret is not being present to give a clap. When I received a full-page email the next morning, Mom, who wasn't home at the time, made up for it. Subject line, "You dare, the body." I was accused of abandoning the lady who gave me life after a protracted emotional manipulation session and covert threats. Claimed that I had degraded her and abandoned them to starvation while I accumulated fortune like a callous miser. She threatened to sue me for mental distress. This is untrue, but her legal degree from Facebook probably indicated differently. I didn't answer. I sent one last email instead. Just an itemized invoice stating, "Support provided to Elaine and Jason Whitmore with no sentiment attached." I added 97 to 842 after breaking it down. This debt collection is not lawful. It's a first-hand account of the 6 years of assistance I gave you both. This does not obligate me to continue to help you. Any more attempts to harm my reputation or get in touch with my employer will be deemed harassment and dealt with appropriately. Then I go beyond my real lawyer. For 2 weeks, they were completely silent. Perhaps it was finally over, I thought. Then my door was knocked on. Since the beginning of this, I had relocated. Quieter, but a smaller flat. No barriers in common. Gated access. Even management had been informed that I did not want my unit number to appear in the directory. I thus assumed it was a delivery when I heard the knock. Without verifying, I opened the door and saw my mother, who appeared frail, elderly, and worn out. She had uneven makeup. She gripped her handbag tightly as if it were armor. "Daniel," she murmured. Uncertain whether to close the door or simply go, I take a step back. She raised her hands and said, "I'm not here to fight. I simply want to chat, please." I didn't slam the door, but I also didn't let her in. On the frame, I leaned, crossed arms. "Hurry up." She glanced down, then up again. The apartment was gone to me. Jason is staying with a woman he met on the internet. I'm staying at a friend's house to sleep. I just wanted to apologize for keeping quiet. Her voice broke. I am aware that I made a mistake. I'm aware that I ought to have been there for you when you needed me. It wasn't until it was gone that I realized how much you were accomplishing. I suppose I simply assumed you would always be there. I let out a slow breath. That's the issue. You believed it was my duty to assist you. No, it wasn't. I know, she blurted out. Now I do. I'd like to make things right. I'd want to speak with you again. Aren't we still family? I clenched my jaw at that word. When it counts, family comes through, I remarked. Your family doesn't steal your mail or ruin your job. She muttered. I was desperate. There was nothing more we could do. You had the option to call. When I was alone and unable to carry groceries after leaving the hospital, I stated, You didn't even ask how I was doing. She broke out in tears, but I was unmoved. I had shed enough tears for everyone. I also stopped allowing her to use remorse as a weapon. You won't get any money from me. I stated it clearly. I understand, she sniffed. I am not here to inquire. What do you want then? She paused. Just an opportunity to start over. Even if it takes years, even if it's sluggish. For once, I looked at her. The manipulator was not visible to me. I witnessed years of entitlement finally coming to an end. And I came to a realization. I didn't despise her. I simply didn't believe her. And it's unlikely that I ever will. I said I'm willing to be polite. I can only say that. My life is not open to you. My address isn't visible to you. I don't assist you. You can text, though. Maybe I'll respond sometime. Slowly, she nodded, similar to someone taking a life sentence. She then departed. Not a drama, no farewell shot, nothing but quiet. It's been 6 months. Jason hasn't gotten back to me. Mom sent one SMS. I hope all is okay with you. I didn't respond. I've returned to my job. I'm more powerful, healthier. I have begun investing in my future. Savings. Go. I used to think it was selfish to deny myself small pleasures. I attend treatment once a week. I no longer feel bad about saying no. I still get the sting sometimes, as if I ought to have done more, as if it were horrible to cut them off. However, I then remember myself that I gave everything I had and they offered me nothing in return when I needed even the tiniest bit. Family wasn't that. That was stepping away from reliance cloaked in guilt. I never showed myself affection till that moment. Story 3. In the family, I've always been the quiet one. Not the golden kid, not the black sheep. It's just background noise. I'm 36-year-old Sam. No children, no wife, and no life, presumably, in my brother's family's eyes. I do have a reliable work there, though. A bank account that has endured more adversities than any of them in years and no debt. They wrote a part for me and I played it. Be thankful for a place at the table, even if it was shaky and close to the coat rack, and show up for the holidays with the pricey presents and unpaid debts. However, nothing could have prepared me for last weekend's events. There were many blow-ups. It was the sound of ripped wrapping paper, a statement, and a smirk. That was all it needed to put a stop to it. My brother Mike's residence was the starting point. Since they were planned a vacation during the holidays, he had invited the entire family over to enjoy an early Christmas. They experienced unforeseen automobile difficulties last year, so I paid for that type of trip. However, 3 days later, Mike arrived at my house in a brand new vehicle equipped with a Bluetooth tailgate. I remained silent. I never do. Part of the issue is that it was just after noon when I arrived. I parked 2 streets away and walked since the driveway was full. The living room was in ruins by the time I entered. There is wrapping paper everywhere. Children yelling over who received what. Additionally, Carrie, my sister-in-law, was shouting at Alexa to reprise her Mariah Carey role. With the exception of Grandma Helen, who gave me her usual squinty look, I seldom got high from anyone. As if she's trying to recall if I'm the nephew who never bothered or the one who's divorced. Warning, I'm the second. The 5 in the corner caught my attention. The one I had been searching for on a restock alert for 6 weeks. A black satin ribbon and silver foil were used to gift wrap it. Earlier in the day, Mike texted me to ask if I could stop by Best Get and get something for his kid Tyler. That meant something to me. He made no payment offer. He never does. Tyler, however, is 14. Like the majority of youngsters, he also lives in a world where nothing is a cause for appreciation and everything is happy. I thought, okay, give the child something that would give him a positive memory. The moment Tyler saw the package bearing his name, like a raccoon on garbage day, he smashed into it. The card wasn't even read by you, didn't raise their eyes, simply tear off the packing, as if he was personally insulted. Then he saw what a PS5 contained. Holy. He managed to catch himself in time. After seeking permission from others, he smiled as if he had discovered a gold bar. It would have been all right. As I usually do, I would have accepted the lack of gratitude and gone to reload my paper plate with mushy stuffing. However, he grinned as he turned to face me. That implies that if you simply disappeared, no one would even notice. After a brief period of silence, there was laughing in the room. Not giggling nervously. True laughter. One that clings to your teeth. Mike slapped the arm of the couch and howled at Carrie. Grandma even snorted. Through a mouthful of cranberry sauce, Carrie said, "Well, he's not wrong. Sam, you really ought to take up a hobby or something." I said nothing at all. I just got to my feet. I didn't have a beating heart. That would have been reasonable. Rather, I felt a chilly, hollow quiet in my chest, as if my body had decided I no longer need feelings. I went to the dining table, pulled up my phone, and used a few swipes to freeze all of the family's bank cards. Carrie's wine subscription was canceled while Mike's gym membership was terminated. The utility bill. As a favor, I had been making auto payments. Completed. I launched the banking app and moved the emergency money that Mike had pleaded with me to establish following his most recent layoff. The one in my name, but straight to my personal savings for the benefit of the family. Put it in a frozen state. I then repaid the $600 I had sent Carrie for Christmas decorations last week, accessed my Venmo, and left a single phrase in the remark, "Not at all." I remained silent, though. I went to the kitchen and picked up the simple cardboard box. I left it on the counter after bringing it in earlier, the one that was placed squarely in the center of the table and about which no one cared to inquire. Mike was opening a drink, but Tyler was too preoccupied with configuring his new console to notice. It's likely that Carrie was searching Instagram for a filter to cover up the empty wine bottles on the coffee table. I didn't hold off till they opened it. I kept what was inside a secret from them. Instead of slamming the front door or stomping away, I just left like I had just finished my shift. I didn't turn around, didn't wait to find out who came next. In case you missed it, nobody did. My phone didn't light up until 2 hours later, after I had already returned home and was sitting on my couch eating leftover Chinese food and watching an octopus documentary. Initially, Mike texted me, "What is this?" Then Carrie added another, "Very amusing." Then Tyler, "Fix it. Why would you do that?" Then there was quiet, until a last note appeared from Grandma Helen this time. This more than anything startled me. That was all it said. "Even for you, that was harsh." I shut off my phone after staring at the message and laughing once. Here's the problem, though. The package was still unopened. Not yet, not then. And they were surprised to find something unexpected within the package. Something that would let them understand how long I had been the glue that held their entire existence together, and how quickly everything may come crashing down if I let go. I didn't design it like a vengeance plot from a movie. No timeline with red yarn, no white sections. Only years. Years of silent animosity gradually eroding into the recesses of my consciousness. Before I started doing it, I had no idea that I would accomplish something like this. But I came to a realization after leaving that place when the door shut behind me, and my name was only a faint echo. I felt no remorse. Not at all. That night they opened the package. Mike phoned, so I know. He doesn't ever call. The voicemail sounded choppy and scratchy. "What is the intended meaning of this, Sam?" He lost his temper. Do you find this amusing? I knew what he saw inside the package, so I didn't reply after everything I've done for you. I arranged 8 sealed envelopes with names written on them. No fancy paper, no ribbons, just business envelopes in basic white, similar to the one you use to settle your water account. A sticky note was taped to the box's interior lid. I write in all capitals, "My assistance is unseen just as I am. I wish you luck." Mike received the first envelope, which included a printed PDF, a formal notification that the co-signer on the family auto loan has been removed. Thick red ink scribbled out my name. A proof of a bank transfer proving I had taken out every cent from the joint emergency fund was attached to it. He relied on it more often than he acknowledged. A screenshot of his Amazon card was also sent. He left it logged in with 3 things he had been eyeing for himself while still paid for, and I had complete access. The cancel order button was hit before printing. Next was Carrie's envelope. Copies of 2 unsuccessful payments, one for the internet bill and one for the family phone plan, were in hers. Even though I had been paying both each month, there was a service disconnected message at the bottom of the stack that I had planned to take effect in 2 days. I waited for her. She wouldn't be viewing anything on Netflix by Wednesday, but I'm not a monster. Tyler had a different envelope. Money was not the issue. 3 months ago, it was a printed screenshot, a picture, and a Snapchat message to a friend. My uncle. He thinks he matters by buying me stuff, which is so pitiful. I didn't intend to notice it. It appeared during a crash while I was assisting him with backing up his phone, but I managed to save it. For 3 months, that screenshot remained on my phone. I printed it out, placed it in an envelope, and wrote in Sharpie across the top. I had never shown it to anyone or confronted him. When you use their money, be careful who you make fun of. Grandma Helen received the 4th envelope. There was a blank thank you card in hers. I wanted to show her how it seemed. For more than a year, I had been using an Instacart subscription to mail her food on the 1st of each month. I've canceled for now. When I left the following day, she was phoning the supermarket to inquire as to why her milk had never arrived. Rachel's envelope, my sister. She participated in the rot even though she wasn't there at the event. You once requested $900 to assist fund your wedding DJ, according to her card. I made the payment. I was never invited. Savor the quiet. 2 more were present. For my dad, 1. For my mother, 1. They were complicit in other ways, but they weren't present either. Additionally, every shrugged shoulder and passive insult throughout the years has been accompanied with quiet and partiality. A printout of Dad's June vacation schedule, which included a cruise I had fully paid for as a surprise Father's Day gift, was in his package. There's something worse for Mom. A picture of our joint nursing care consultation from 6 months ago. The one in which she sobbed. Fearful of being a burden, of turning into that elderly woman whom everyone shuns. I had placed her name on a wait list, paid the deposit, and located the ideal facility. In her mail, I also canceled that. I grabbed the email confirmation along with a sticky note. When the moment comes, ask Mike whether he will assist you. They didn't call again that evening. None of them. The quiet, however, was short-lived. I had 15 texts left to read by the next morning. Most were upset. Carrie used a lot of emojis and all capitals in her paragraphs. Mice had more poison and were shorter. "Wow, you really think you're better than us," one person remarked. "Tyler has another that 5. You have no right to discipline a youngster. I was assured by that youngster that if I disappeared, no one would notice. And for years, everyone laughed. I gave, and they treated me like the family's ATM requiring no PIN. I reminded myself that I was being good and that it was admirable to give without expecting anything in return. Maybe one day they'll realize I'm always around. They would have seen me, but they didn't. When they wanted a ride, they saw my car and money. When the credit applications appeared, my name was listed. Not me, though. And now, they were starting to notice what life was like without me. I didn't reply in writing. I didn't give an explanation. I simply let it happen. However, I was aware. There was still more in that box, so I knew it wasn't done yet. They had not yet seen it. Simply Final was the label on the 8th envelope. The 8th envelope featured only one word neatly scribbled across the front in black ink and no name. Final. And I was aware that would be the one to keep them up at night. I hadn't revealed it to them. I didn't have to. Last they would open it. The mystery is always saved until last, isn't it? Human nature is that way. Fear enveloped in curiosity. In my mind, I saw Mike pacing the kitchen while muttering something about how I had finally lost it. Carrie is looking through legal sites in an attempt to report me for financial sabotage or emotional abuse. The irony, Tyler was pouting in the corner holding onto the PS5 controller as if it might revert to its pumpkin form if he released it. Grandma is presumably practicing a speech on how family never turns its back on you even if you're ungrateful while sipping tepid tea with the same critical frown. Someone would then open it. Most likely. Mike. Being the loudest person in the room was something he could never avoid. There was a letter inside. It wasn't upset. It wasn't sour. It was truthful. Printed on heavy paper and carefully folded. Similar to a letter of resignation, which it was in a sense. It started. I've finally done what I should have done years ago, if you're reading this. I left more than simply Christmas and the house. I abandoned you. I'm sure the first phrase was enough to break the stillness, but I continued. I'm not anticipating an apology. It's not something you possess. I've seen you all treat me like a babysitter, a cab, a pocketbook, a background prop, and a mistake you only admit when it suits you. You speak about family as though it were sacrosanct. What you imply, however, is helpful. And I've lost my usefulness. Not how you would like. This was not a retaliatory piece of writing. Not at all. Clarity was the key. The type that comes only after years of putting your ego aside and claiming to be a peacekeeper. The letter went on. Remember who made the deposit payment. When did Tyler smash the window of the neighbor? And you didn't want the cops to get involved. Or who feigned ignorance of the debt you never repaid. Or who, unwilling to pay a specialist, traveled 3 hours to fix your internet? Yes, I do. Since I physically saved the receipts, I can recall every detail. You claimed that if I disappeared, nobody would notice. Then something clicked. You believe I have already. You treat me as though I'm worthless and unimportant. I'm doing you a favor now. I'm vanishing. No more favors, no more money. No longer acting as a quiet safety net for the family. And the final paragraph. I knew that one would stick. They would read that one aloud, perhaps twice. The 5 are yours to keep. The presents, the time, and the memories are yours to keep. I was stupid enough to believe that it mattered. However, I am no longer a member of your family as of right now. Avoid making a call. Avoid texting. Don't say sorry. There is no bargaining here. It's a warning. One day, I hope you'll understand what you had. I do, but I'll be far gone by then. Additionally, you'll be opening a lot more boxes that are empty and only contain your own echoes. That was it. No demands, no threats. A simple surgical farewell. I signed it after that. Sam! I pictured Mike clutching the paper as if it were on fire. Carrie scoffs, blinking excessively while feigning indifference. Tyler looks anxiously to his father for a clue while attempting to maintain his composure. Grandma, too. She's old enough to understand when someone truly means they're done, so I saw her being extremely still. They were still unaware of my whereabouts. They were unaware that I had previously prepared a suitcase, reserved a cottage beside the lake in the north, where our father used to take us before he became bored and resentful. I didn't intend to return. I may have rented it for longer than 2 months. A little spot with no mobile service, no Wi-Fi, and most importantly, no family responsibilities. Rachel had laughed when they gave me the scratch-off for my birthday and said, well, if he wins, we'll finally get that pool. So I didn't even tell her. I anticipated feeling alone, empty, and remorseful. However many hours away in that 2-story house filled with holiday trash and artificial grins, I felt as though I could finally breathe. I could feel the stillness descending like a layer of ice, They were now crumbling as they realized, possibly for the first time, that I had been the glue. 3 days passed before I heard from them. Not a phone call, not a text, not even a phony apology scribbled with sorrow in one hand. Just total, oppressive quiet. I relished every moment of it. Although it was modest, the cottage I had hired was ideal. The kitchen had wood cabinets that groaned like they were telling stories, and there was one bedroom. A fireplace that required some encouragement, but once it was going, roared magnificently. No TV, no internet. And on my morning walks, the only signals I could hear were the crunch of snow beneath my feet and the crackling of the radio. I wasn't hiding. That quiet was being healed by me. It wasn't a case of loneliness. Peace prevailed, the type of quiet that is so loud and pure that you don't even know you've been missing it. You begin to question how you managed to survive without it. The communications resumed on the 4th day. The first name that appeared was Mike's. The synopsis read, "You're acting like a child. Can we have a conversation?" Then another. "Carrie is going crazy. This has to be fixed. Are you a member of the family?" Yes, indeed. I was now a member of the family. I didn't answer. After 5 minutes, Carrie arrived. "This has gone too far, whatever it is. We were humiliated by you." Tyler had spent the entire day in tears. Tyler didn't weep when he informed me that no one would care if I disappeared so that one made me laugh. Everyone chuckled as he grinned. No responsibility, no apologies. Only the aftermath caused pain. That was the main thing that affected them. Not that I had been harmed, but that I would no longer allow them to profit from my suffering. I bided my time until tomorrow. The sister hadn't even arrived when Rachel contacted her. I heard the events. Ghosting everyone isn't healthy, but I know they went too far. Can we get together? Vanishing? Vanishing. I had been ignored at family dinners for 10 years. Disregarded, made fun of. In corners, quietly, as if I couldn't hear the murmurs. Ghosting wasn't what this was. This was mourning. For the person I once allowed them to mold me into, not for them. I also didn't respond to her. Rather, I took a stroll through the dense snow and naked trees across the icy lake and through the woods where it wasn't difficult to be silent. It was merited. For an hour, I stood there and took it all in. After that, I decided. Nor with malice, nor with anger. Uncertain. The book had to be closed. Upon my return to the cabin, I poured a cup of old cabin coffee, sat at the little kitchen table, and started typing. Not on a cell phone. Real vintage pen-to-paper letters on paper. The kind that is no longer written. It seemed appropriate since I hadn't received any correspondence from any of them in years that didn't include a Venmo request or a list of items they needed me to pick up. Mike received the first letter. "You stated I was being immature, Mike. For that, I would want to thank you. Since I'm finally understanding what love should look like, I'm thinking like a child for once. It is not determined by the quantity of favors rendered or the amount of money paid. It's determined by words that don't shatter you and laughing that doesn't hurt. Tyler learned to make fun of me from you by laughing when he did it rather than by sitting him down and stating it directly. He learned more from that than from any lecture. You didn't just let me down. You also let him down by teaching him that individuals are only valuable for what they can contribute and that being kind is a sign of weakness. I will no longer participate in that lesson. After that, Carrie, you always pretended that I had empathy." Mike brought along a joke. "Your tone spoke louder than words ever could. I recall every snide remark and every glance. Whoa, you did show up. When you're childless, it must be good to be able to afford it." Here's the problem, though. I couldn't, therefore I didn't have children. I decided not to. I saw your treatment of those who came to your aid and came to the conclusion that solitude was preferable to being exploited. Tyler sobbed, you said. Did you... Or are you simply in a panic because no one is paying Rachel for your streaming services and your credit card isn't processing? It was brief. Rachel, you've always taken the simplest route, as we both know. It was simpler to remain silent than to get up. Explaining to your spouse why I am treated like a coat rack by your family was more difficult than not inviting me to your wedding. I'm no longer angry. People only notice me when they need help moving a sofa, and I just don't have the energy to explain myself to them. Grandma Helen received one as well. You once told me that it was a virtue to be silent, Grandma. I should be thankful. I don't get many requests. I had it easy, you claimed. You've never realized that tranquility isn't implied by quiet. Occasionally, it indicates that we no longer think anyone is paying attention. Your groceries delivery has been canceled. Indeed, you'll be all right. It's obvious that you've experienced worse. Don't expect me to act as though years of uncritical criticism didn't have an impact. I mailed the letters from the little post office after sealing them. 2 towns away. That was the end of it. I didn't hold off on responding. Their social media was not stalked by me. I gave it up. It was 3 weeks later. 1 letter was returned to me. Tyler sent it, in pencil. Messy notebook paper from the internet. Ripped out of a school binder. Excuse me, Uncle Sam. That's what Dad told me to say. However, I also wanted to express it honestly. When I stated those things, I wasn't serious. I was attempting to be humorous. Everyone was laughing, and I feared that they would tease me if I didn't join in. I used the PS5. I was unable to appreciate it. It reminded me of you. I suppose I assumed you would be here forever. Tyler. My darling, I miss you. That one, I said. Because the cycle may occasionally be broken, but only when the person is aware that they are part of it. I responded in writing. I was short-lived. I kept it from being sentimental. I just informed him that it takes more than just words to forgive. Change is necessary, and I would be open to speaking with him once more if he was prepared to provide evidence. Perhaps we can get together sometime. I never heard from the others again. Not Grandma, not Carrie, not Rachel, not Mike. And what do you know? That's okay with me. Now I've finally come to understand what limits feel like. Not walls, just gates that are locked on fences, the type that you only open in response to a knock. With respect, I kept the money in my account. The telephone remained silent. The anxious humming in the air around me subsided, and I fell asleep for the first time in my adult life. Actually slept. Without considering if I might be contacted the next day by someone in need of $500, a place to stay, or just one more favor before they may spin it someday. Inform them that I had a breakdown, that I went crazy. Permit them. Since the truth is straightforward, I didn't vanish. I just stopped allowing them to act as though I never existed.